Maria Hildingsson é a secretária-geral da Associação das Famílias Católicas da Europa. Esteve em Portugal por uma série de conferências sobre a família e é a nossa convidada hoje para falar. Maria, muito obrigado pela sua disponibilidade. Começava por lhe perguntar aquilo que falava ontem numa das suas conferências, em que falava da necessidade de recuperarmos o valor antropológico da família. Que valor é esse?
When we talk about family policy, when we talk about family-friendly policies, for example, we talk about family. But we do need, as I said, to see what the definition of the family is. It is very difficult to have a policy which is targeted towards something which is not defined. And the challenge that we have ahead of us today, and probably in the future years to come as well, is the understanding of what a family is. We know that there is an ideological battle, or a battle of ideas right now. Some people want to introduce the idea that a family could be any form of people living together, one, two, several adults with children. Nevertheless, what we promote as a federation is the idea that the family based on the marriage between one man and one woman is the safest and the best living arrangement, both for the children and for the spouses. And of course, this idea is being challenged today by certain currents. Nevertheless, I think that most people, what they aspire for is stable relationships, stable family life. And this is something we need to take seriously. And we need perhaps also to step aside from, let's say, the more ideological battle and look at what the hearts and the desires of people are telling us.
Como é que a Europa olha para a família nestes dias?
I think that if we are to talk to people in the street, there is a kind of confusion, in fact, between what family is on the one hand and what marriage is on the other hand. And marriage is often considered more under the, let's say, romantic, emotional light, whereas marriage, in fact, is an institution intended to protect the spouses and the children of that union. And this is probably where we need to work to be able to better grasp what marriage is about and also to be able to explain it.
O inverno demográfico que a Europa vive hoje em dia pode também significar a quebra da família enquanto instituição?
Perhaps because it's true that many young people today, they feel that they cannot trust, they do not feel confident in the future, they do not feel confident in their own capacity to have long and stable relationships, and they do not feel confident in the capacity of others to have such relationships. And part of the explanation, I would say, is family breakdown, divorce, separations and so forth. But another part is certainly a confusion of how we relate to others and what role that relationship can play within society and what the family is really about. So what we need to pursue is, on the one hand, politics, but on the other hand also close person-centered solutions to accompany, to prepare for married life, to prepare for stable relationships. We need a true education to love, to cherish, to forgive, to live together. And I believe that the first place where that starts is in the home, within the family. Children who have the chance to grow up with their parents and have parents who give a testimony, a living testimony of the capacity they have to also go through difficult moments, to go through crisis and so forth, but to continue their way together. Those children are probably better equipped to be able to establish a relationship in their turn. But of course there can also be other ways to support those people who did not have that chance and that opportunity by having a true relational, emotional and sexual education, but not splitting these dimensions, but keeping them together.
Quais são os desafios que as famílias católicas enfrentam nos dias de hoje?
For Catholic families, I think the biggest challenge is to give testimony of faith and educate for faith. But of course, if we want this to be pursued within the family, it is also about equipping children and young people with the capacity and the confidence that they are able, in their turn, to have good, healthy and thriving relationships.
Como é que viu as mais recentes legislações europeias e em alguns países relacionadas com o casamento entre pessoas do mesmo sexo, o aborto, a adoção entre pessoas do mesmo sexo? Acha que de alguma forma afetam os valores da família?
To a certain extent, yes, because there is an educational challenge here, and the media today plays a very important role. If the media only presents a certain idea of love and relationships, of course that will have an impact on young and less young people. So it does affect the way we consider the family, especially in those cases where people do not have their own references. If they have not had the opportunity to receive from their childhood references and principles that help them to structure themselves, they will structure themselves a lot more through the media and so forth. So of course that does have an impact.
Daquilo que conhece, acha que as famílias católicas hoje ainda rezam em família?
When it comes to praying as a family, I think it's difficult to know exactly what happens within each home. But I do think there are many families that pray together and still do so. I also think that there is a whole new generation, what we would call the John Paul II generation, Benedict XVI generation, where there is a deep desire and desire to live accordingly to your faith. And I see many young families around myself from different countries who experience this and who are perhaps a bit more radical in the way they will make their life choices regarding their faith than their parents' generation. So I'd rather think there is a renewal.
Muitas crianças de 6 anos que chegam à catequese têm pouco ou nenhuma formação. Considera importante que falar-se nas questões da catequese familiar e da importância dos pais também começarem a preparar os seus filhos para o crescimento na fé?
The family is the domestic church, and of course as such it has a mission, and the mission is to transmit faith. In many cases parents may not feel that they are capable of doing the catechesis themselves, and they expect of course to get that from priests or other persons who are dedicated to the catechism. I don't think we can expect parents to do everything, but of course they can be supported and also be supported and encouraged to transmit faith to their children. But I think that the families also need the church in this task. It's not something that the families can do entirely on their own.
Muito obrigado. Foram as ideias de Maria Hildingsson, secretária-geral da Associação das Famílias Católicas da Europa, que nos deixa propostas de um maior investimento nas famílias, na preparação das suas crianças e na própria vivência em família, da oração e do testemunho que é importante que cada família passe para que também possa ser um objeto de evangelização.